Hey, what's up guys? It's John here. Some of you guys know me as Sub-Zero Gaming. I'm back with another tutorial here, and today it's going to be raycasting. This video is going to make raycasting as simple as possible so that anyone can do it. Now, what I do recommend is watching all of my tutorials up to this point, because we do deal with rigid bodies and a little bit of physics in this. With this video, guys, what we're going to do today is we're going to use a raycast to add force to an object and move it. I have 3 objects, or 4 objects really, in front of me. You can set up a new scene, you can create some objects that you want to knock over or that you want to do something with. And then also, on top of adding force, we're also going to change the color of an object if it's hit by a raycast. Alright, and we're also going to make this work by clicking on your screen. So if you were to left click, you will be able to shoot a raycast, which is perfect for, say, a gun. And then we're going to use what's called a hit info, which would tell us details about where the ray hit, and we can instantiate bloodshed, bullet holes, sparks, anything else. So using raycast can be used in many ways. Alright, so let's go ahead and start. Just create a new scene, new project, create some objects that you want to be able to knock over, do anything, alright? That's all you need. And then we're going to create a new script, and you're going to attach it to your main camera, okay? Alright, so go ahead and create a new script. I just called mine raycast. Alright, and let me just fix my brackets here. And actually, hold on guys, my develop just crashed. 1 second. Open it back up. Okay, so when we look at raycasting, guys, it's very difficult, and one of the reasons why it's so difficult is because of how you see it. So I'm going to break it down to where it's actually not so scary to look at. So for starters, let's go ahead and just look at the reference manual. In Unity, guys, right now you should be watching my screen, but as I go along, I'm going to make it to where you shouldn't have to watch my screen, because I don't do follow-along tutorials where you just copy me. You're going to do it yourself. Go ahead and open up the reference manual. You can click on an object, and then you can hit the question mark on the book. Okay, so go to the scripting reference and type in raycast. Okay, so you go to the raycast. Go to raycast. Oh, okay, sorry. Go to physics.raycast. All right, and this is what this is. Okay, rays basically Boolean true when the ray intersects and collides. Say create a ray against all colliders in the scene. So raycast basically means that we're going to shoot a ray, which could be like an example, a bullet from a gun. So we're going to shoot a ray, and then we want that ray to hit something with a rigid body or a box collider or a sphere collider or any collider. So something with a collider. Okay, and with that we can add physics to whatever it hits. Like we can add force, we can change a color, we could do numerous amounts of things. Okay, so looking at this, let's just see what we have real quick. So we have if physics.raycast, which is calling the physics engine and the raycast method to draw a ray. And then you have the position of the ray. Right? This is the position where you want the ray to come out. You have a direction for the ray, which we're going to want to be the direction of whatever our raycast is pointing at. So it's probably going to be forward. And then this 10 here, guys, is the distance in meters. So for instance, if a gun can shoot 50 meters, you would put 50 instead of 10 there. If you want to only shoot 10 meters, put 10. So basically it says we're casting, so basically it says if casting a ray and you want to put the position of the barrel of the gun in the direction going forward, and then you want the distance of the bullet or the ray to be 10 meters. Okay? So now let's go ahead and figure out what we need to do first. So in order to do raycasting, guys, there's a few things you have to do. There's a few variables that you have to declare. One is called the ray variable that lets us do that, the raycast ray variable, which lets us create a ray. And then we're going to create a variable to get data from where the ray hits, and that's called hit info, which is a raycast hit. So don't worry, right? You're going to understand it all at the end. But first thing what we want to do is we want to get it to where we can trigger a raycast. And by doing that, we want it to be where if we start our game and I left click on the screen at one of these buildings, it would do something. Okay, it would do something. And to do that, we have to build functionality for it. So going into our script here, in the update method, what do I want to check for? So let's see, I'm going to write it out in pseudocode for us. Let's see, so if left mouse button is clicked, if left mouse button is clicked, let's see, if mouse left button is clicked, create a raycast. Create a raycast that originates from the mouse clicked position. And you guys should be following my screen right now and type this out, because once we're done typing this out, we're going to replace what's called the pseudocode, which is this, with the methods. And this is a great way to program anything. So if left mouse button is clicked, create a raycast that originates from the mouse clicked position. Okay, mouse clicked position. Create a raycast that originates from the mouse clicked position. Alright, let's do that. So here we go. So if left mouse button is clicked, create a raycast that originates from the mouse clicked position. So a few things we have to do is set up a variable, guys. And in the update method, you can do this because it's part of raycast. Go ahead and type, we're going to create a new ray. Okay, so it's going to be, you want to type in ray, okay, ray, because we're going to create a new ray. And then you can give it an identifier, which is going to be just ray for me. But actually, I'm not going to do that, and this is why it's so confusing. If you were to ever see a raycast script, you'll see people write it like this, ray, and then you don't know what it does. So actually, guys, let me show you what this does, because it's going to make more sense. I'm going to name it ray origin, okay? Origin. Just kidding, hold on. Ray origin. There you go. And what this is basically I'm calling the ray from where I'm going to use this variable to define the origin of where the ray starts, okay? So ray origin, okay? And then you're going to do another method here called ray, going to be raycast hit, okay? And this is going to store information. So we want to store, so name that one hit info, okay? It's going to be hit information. So basically that says that if the ray were to hit an object, it gets stored in what's called hit info, so we can check to see the exact point the ray hit. We can check the game object that it hit. We can do multiple things that it hit. You know, there's a whole bunch of things, and I'll go over that in the video. Alright, so we have that. We have our raycast origin, raycast hit info. This allows us, the first one here, ray origin, that allows us to draw the ray. This one here records the ray data. So once it hits something, it allows us to use it. Okay. So now let's start with our pseudocode here, okay? So we have if left mouse button is clicked. So obviously you're going to have an if statement in there, guys. Alright, so let's see. Go and create an if statement. Let's see what else you need. You got if statement, and then you see it says mouse button is clicked. So looking back at the old tutorials, or the other tutorials we did, when we have to say press, get a key or an arrow key to move left and right, those are called input keys, and we use something called input get axis horizontal. Well, there's something very similar with mouse clicks, and if you just go and type in input, you can actually go through the list and see which ones are relevant to you. Let's see. They have get key up, get key down. They have get mouse button down, and get mouse button up. So what we want to do is when the mouse button is clicked down, we want it to shoot a ray. So we're going to go with get mouse button down. Okay, so this says if get mouse button down, and then I believe the default is left click, but just in case, guys, 0 is going to be the default. And the reason why is I believe that's what it's declared as in the input. And also, if you were to look at the get mouse down function in Unity through the scripting reference, it will also show you that for a left click. So let me show you that real quick. Scripting mouse down. Or here, input dot mouse down. Just kidding. Mouse get button. Mouse button down. Okay, here we go. Input dot get mouse button down. Alright, so let's see. You need to call this function from the update function. Since the state gets reset each frame, it will not return true until the user has released the mouse button and press it again. Button values are 0 for left, 1 for right, 2 for the middle button. Okay, there you go. So 0 is for left. Okay, so that's how you would know that. So this says if the left mouse button is clicked. Alright, so we're good. We can delete the pseudocode for that. Create a raycast that originates from the mouse clicked position. Okay. So guys, what we want to do is create a new ray. So actually take these ray variables and put that in the if statement. Okay. So the ray variables created before, go and put them in the if statement. And what this says is that if left mouse button is clicked, then we're gonna create a ray. All right, and the way you do that is going to be, trying to think how to do this. So with ray, we know we have to use the physics engine, guys. So let's go ahead and try this. So go ahead and create another if statement. And the reason why I know to do that is because looking at the documentation, guys, as an example, all rays start out with physics.raycast, okay? So if, let's go ahead and do an if statement, and then you're going to put a physics, you're going to call the ray, so physics.raycast. Alright, and then go ahead and open up parenthesis, and you have 12 different ways of doing raycast. And I'm going to go over just the few simple ones. So looking at this, you have a ray, float distance. You have a ray, an out, raycast hit info. You have a vector 3 origin, a vector 3 direction. You have a ray, a distance and a layer mask. You have an origin, a direction, and a distance. You have a ray, an outcast hit info, and a distance. So this one here is what I'm going to use, and I'll explain why. So right now it says ray. So what does that mean? Well, that means no one. It's hard to tell. So if you look at the documentation for ray, it means vector 3 origin. But what's confusing is why people name it ray. And for simplicity reasons, they do that. But to help you out, guys, you'll notice that I named my ray origin, because what it is a vector 3 origin. And actually, we're going to set the vector 3 ray origin to something. And we're going to set it equal to the camera mouse position. So when I click left on the screen, that's where the raycast will start. If I click it all the way on the left of the screen, the raycast, as soon as the point where I click, that's where the raycast starts. If I click on the top of the screen, that's where the raycast starts. So to do that, we're going to call our camera, all right, and it's going to be the main camera. Use the main function to find the camera that has the tag on it, main camera, which is built into Unity. Every scene has a tag built in where it's already main camera is already given to it. So that's to call it. So camera.main, and then you want to make it to where the ray is going to be pointed at where the screen is clicked. Okay. So to do that, you're going to look and see what our options are here. And what we want to do is where we click is where the ray starts. So looking at all these, I don't really see anything. Get component, get instance. And actually, guys, if you were to look at camera.main, the method here, or main, or just look up any of that, let me go ahead and show you real quick in the Unity reference, because this is how you could honestly do this without watching this tutorial. Open up the scripting reference, and let's search for main. And you'll see camera.main. There you go. Okay, so this first enabled camera tags main camera, so we know what that is. Camera.main. Okay, let's see, camera.main. Let's first... actually, okay, let's go back into raycasting. Raycast. Okay, so here we go. So you got physics.raycast. So it's looking at that, guys. There should be... Crap. Hold on. My God. Just lost like track of thought. Okay, so looking at, let's get a better example here. Let's see. Camera.main. Should be something with raycast. Collider.raycast. Let's check that example. Okay, here we go. Here's a perfect example of it. Okay, so Collider.raycast is basically casting a ray into a collider. But that's not what we want. We want the variable ray, and why everyone calls it ray. So this is JavaScript, unfortunately, but what it says here is, guys, is they're making a variable called ray, capital Ray, and then they're naming it to call back on it ray. But if you look at it, it says camera.main, screen point to ray, and then the input mouse position. So look what happens if we actually just write this. Screen put to ray. So screen main.screen put to ray. And then when you open up a parenthesis, it says vector 3 position. Well, what position do we want in world space? We want the position of where our mouse is clicked. So if you just type input dot, type in mouse position. So input of the mouse position, when we click, is where we want our ray to begin. Okay? So that's that. So we have our ray origin, and then our raycast hit info. So now let's look at our if physics.raycast if statement here. And what you'll see is if physics.raycast, and then we have a ray, and we're going to use the ray, out, raycast, hit info, and float distance. So right now, our ray is actually ray origin, which is what this is calling for. It's calling for a vector 3 origin. So we're going to do ray origin, and then it's also calling for a raycast hit info, and you have to use out. Now the out, guys, is just a reference. Part of the reason why vector 3s are so, I'm sorry, not vector 3s, raycasts are so difficult is because a lot of people don't understand the reason for having the out there. And unfortunately, guys, the easiest way to explain it is it's just a reference to getting the hit info. So what you're going to do is just remember to always use out, and then you want to put hit info, and what that says is physics.raycast, so we're calling the raycast. The raycast is going to start from the ray origin, which is a vector 3 origin, and then we want it to record hit info so we can call back. This is basically saying that it's going to have a ray origin of the camera mouse click. We're going to record the impact on hit. The hit info is where the ray hits. So once the ray hits, it gets stored in hit info. And then our third one is going to be a distance. Okay, and that third one is optional. So if I just left it like this says that the ray is going to start at mouse position, and if it hits an object, the object at where it hits is going to be my hit info, or the object it hit is my hit info. And if I want to add a distance, I can add a float distance. So I can add, say, 25 f, and that makes it 25 meters that the ray will cast, at the distance of the ray cast. All right, so I'll go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and create a new variable. It might be easier to create a new variable actually for it. So I'm going to create public. Let's say I'm just going to create a float distance. And I'm going to set to 25f. All right, and then put that in here for the distance. Okay, so physics.raycast ray origin, out, hit info, and distance. All right, so I hope you guys really understand that. All right, this is the vector 3. This is the origin of the ray, which is the camera. This is going to be the hit information it's going to record. So if it hits a wall, it's going to be put in here that it hit the wall. And then distance is the distance. So now that we have that, what happens here is if we just put a debug in there, you are casting a ray. Okay, let's go ahead and save that, open up Unity, put the script in there. Alright, man, ready to go ahead and start it. And when we click, it says you are casting a ray, and we can't see the ray or anything like that, but you'll see in my debug here, let's also do another thing where you can actually visualize the ray. You'll be able to see it. In your script, there's a debug.draw method. And what that does is draws a line. So debug.draw, draw line, you could use draw ray too, it doesn't matter. Debug.draw line, and we are going to have it, we're going to draw a line, a vector 3 start and a vector 3 end. So we're going to do draw line ray origin and vector 3 end, which is going to be hit info. And I'm not too sure actually if the hit info is going to require something else. It might require an exact of what we want to hit. Because hit, okay, yeah, so it does. So with hit info, guys, let's go ahead and look up what raycast hit actually is. So in the Unity thing here, in Unity, let's go ahead and go to the reference manual and go to raycast hit. Raycast hit. All right. Let's see. Structure used to get information back from a raycast. So once it hits something, it's stored in raycast. And here's the options we have. We have point, normal. You could read through these on your own time, but the one I'm really going to use right now is point. The impact point in world space where the ray hit the collider. So the debug it, guys, is just going to do hitinfo.point. And what this says is that we're going to draw a line from the origin, and then we're also going to draw a line to where the raycast actually hit. The point in world space that it actually hit. Go ahead and save it. Alright, and our errors should be gone. If they're not, Unity engine.ray expression type Unity vector 3. Oh, vector 3, guys, sorry, it's a direction. So ray origin, we want the direction of the ray. So go ahead and just put direction. Sorry. Okay. So now when you play it, you're not going to see anything in the game view, but look at the scene view. When I hit, you are casting array. Huh. You are casting array. Alright, so it's telling me I'm casting array. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. You can see it. So on my screen, guys, you'll see it very briefly. I'm going to keep doing it. You see there where it's drawing a line. That's because that's where I'm hitting. Alright? So based off where the camera is, I'm hitting these points in 3D space. Okay, so we know our raycast is working. So now what we need to do is make it to where we can use it to do like cool things with it. So right now what we're saying is if we're using a raycast and the position's at the camera main, okay, where the mouse click is, that's where we want the ray to cast. So that's the ray origin of the camera, which is the camera position. Then we want to record hit info. We want to be able to pull hit info, and then we have a distance of 25. So if I'm before 25 meters, it's not going to work. Okay, let me think. Okay, so first thing is let's make like a force basically. Let's make a gun type thing. So for instance, say if when in the game view, if I click one of these buildings and I want it to shoot away or I want it to knock it over, we need to add a force to it. And using a raycast, we can add force to the exact position that I hit. So to do that, guys, in your raycasting, there's a method in Unity called add force. And the way we do this is we want to get the hit direction for it. So from now on, inside raycast, we want to use the hit info to get information from where it hits. So what we want is hit info, and then you want to do, let's see, hit info dot, let's see, trying to think how we should do this. Sorry guys, give me a minute. This is a very raw video. Some of my videos I pre-do them and stuff like that, but this one actually I haven't. Give me a second. Sorry. Okay, so you know what? First things first, let's go ahead and declare what we want to hit. So right now we're saying if we cast a raycast, if we're casting a raycast, alright, so if physics.raycast, and that's the origin stuff, we're doing a debug.log. Now let's check to see if we hit something. So if, remember, in order for raycast to work, whatever you hit has to have a rigid body, okay? So if hit info, let's do hit info dot rigid body. Okay, hit info dot rigid body. Let's do not equal to null. And what this says, guys, is that if the raycast were to hit something that doesn't have a rigid body, it does nothing. But if it hits something, if hit info dot rigid body, okay, so what this says is if hit info dot rigid body has a rigid body, it's gonna add force to it, which is what we're about to do. But if it doesn't have a rigid body, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to ignore it. Okay? So anything that has a rigid body will be affected by the raycast. So we do if hit info, okay, so we want to get the information, which is the point at which the ray hit. So if hit info dot rigid body is not equal to null, we want to take hit info dot rigid body. We want to get the rigid body of the item that got hit by the ray, and we want to add a force to it. But we don't want to just add force. We can do this. You can add a force, but what we want, that's going to add a force to the game object. But what we want is to add force at the exact position the ray hit. So add force at position is a good option. And then if you just go ahead and create a parenthesis, you see three things. So you need a vector 3 force, and you need a vector 3 position, or you need a vector 3 force and a vector 3 position in a force mode. I'm not going to get into force mode in this one because it's not really needed for this type of physics. But what we can use is a vector 3 force. Okay, so we need a moving force and then a vector 3 position. Okay, so looking at this, a vector 3 force, let's go ahead and create a force variable. Go ahead and create a variable and name it float. Make it a public variable so you can adjust it in the inspector. Make it a public float power. Or you can name it whatever, but it's going to be force. So how much power do you want to add? So public float power. And I'm going to make mine set to 500 F. Alright, so I'm going to have a power of 500. Alright, so looking back at this, guys, when you make your open parentheses, alright, it's going to say, and I actually apologize, guys, this tutorial actually requires you probably to look at my screen, but you should be able to do this, get familiar with them. I want you basically to familiarize yourself with the way Unity has it written. And so you do if hit info.rigid body equals null. So you're going to get the hit info, you're going to get the rigid body of the item, of the object it hit. You're going to add force at the position of the ray, like the impact of the ray. Okay, so add force at position, and then you see we need a vector 3. So what do we want? We want the direction of the ray going, right? So if you're facing someone and you shoot them, they should fall in the direction that you shot them, which is going to be behind them. So we're going to use a vector 3 we need a vector 3. So to make this easier, we want to make it the direction of our ray being pointed. So what you can do is ray origin dot direction. Okay, ray origin dot direction. And then it says we need a vector 3 position, which is the final, which is the position of our hit info. So what you're going to do is you're going to do hit info, and then we have to use one of those things, otherwise we'll get an error, and we want the point in 3D space. Okay, so what this says, guys, is we're going to get hit info. So once the ray hits something, it's going to be stored in hit info, which is going to be the game object it hit. We're going to get the rigid body of that object. We're going to add force at the position of the hit, which is going to be the ray origin direction. So if we're facing the object, we want it to fall backwards. And then we're using the point at which it was hit. Alright, so now we're missing something though, guys. Right now, this is just the direction, and this is the point at which it got impacted. So if we just add force right now, there's actually not going to be anything that happens. It's not going to move because we didn't actually apply a force to it. We added a directional force. But what we need now is to apply our power variable. So go ahead and apply your power variable. Alright, so now we have add force position, so we're gonna add a force of 500 in the position of which we clicked. So it's gonna be forward most likely. And then it's gonna be positioned, that force is gonna be positioned at the point at which the ray hit the object. Alright, so if we go ahead and just save this, and let's go ahead and run our game, you'll notice now when I click them, they fall over. Alright, and that's with 500. Now watch what happens if I go to the inspector here, and let's increase 500 to say, let's make it 2500. Watch what happens. Now it gets shot away. So when you click it, it just flies away now because there's so much force. Okay, so that was our cool little force thing, and you could, obviously there's numerous amounts of ideas that you can use for this. The next thing we're going to do, guys, is I'm going to teach you how to change a color of an object that you hit. And I'm actually not going to tell you, I'm not actually going to write this code out. So I recommend watching the screen and then try this one on your own. So what we want to happen now is when I hit one of these objects, the color is going to change to, for me it's going to be green. You can make any color you want, but I'm going to make it green. So for instance, I start the game, set my power to 0. When I click one of these things, I want it to turn green. So the way I do that, guys, is obviously we know that in order to add force, we still have to use the hit info to call our raycast hit. So we're going to do that again. So you need to call the impact point, which is hit info. Okay, so call the, okay here, so yeah, call the hit information, call the, let's see, trying to think. So looking at our inspector, guys, what you want to do is you want to, when you hit a cube, you want to turn green. So if you go ahead and look at one of the cubes that you want to turn green, you'll see that you have a transform, a box collider, a mesh renderer, and a rigid body. Now in my old tutorials, you remember that I said, what's a transform, guys? Right? A transform is a game object. Okay? A transform is equal to a game object. And what would we want to do to that game object? We want to make that game object a different color, which is found in the renderer. So we want to change the material of that item, because color is held in its material, and the material is held in its renderer. which is held in the transform, which is its game object. Okay, the transform is the game object. So going to do that, we want to call the hit information. We want to call the game object. Remember, transform is equal to game object. So call the game object, and then I believe once you do that, let's see, you want to call the transform, all right, and then you want to, so basically what you're doing is you're calling the hit information. You want to call the game object's position, all right, game object's position, which is its transform, okay? So call the game object's position, all right, so call the transform, and then you want to call the game object, all right, so game object, now you're calling the physical object, and then what you want to do is call that object's render. Okay, you want to call the object's render, and then you want to call that object's render material. Okay, and then you want to call that material's color. And what you want to do, guys, is you want to equal that to a new color. Now, don't just type new color, guys, otherwise it's not going to work. So what you have to do is you have to equal that and just try it. Just try typing in like color dot green or dot blue, like, you know, equal it to, say, I don't know, color dot green. Mess around with it, see what happens. If you have errors with this, figure out why. So basically, guys, looking at this, I kind of made a pattern here on each line. Call the hit information, okay? Call the transform, game object, render material, color. Now, I hope you guys are going to do this on your own, but just to give you a short hint, let's pretend I did this the exact same thing for the rigid body. So for the add force one, so what you want to do is you want to call the hit information, call the rigid body of the hit information, call the rigid body of the object it hit, call the rigid body. Alright, you want to call the add force position menu, and then inside the parentheses, or you know, inside it, you want to call the origin of hit information. Call the origin of hit information with a, oh, I'm sorry, that's so wrong. Call the direction of the hit information, and then call the position. Okay, call the position of where you want the force to be, where the force should be. And then you want to add with the direction, your force variable minus power. Okay, so if I were to recreate this, guys, here's how I would do it by reading what I just wrote. It would be call the hit information, so hit info. I need to call the rigid body. I need to call the add force menu or method. Add force position. Add position, and then let's see. Call the direction of hit information. So now I need to call the direction. So I want to use the direction that my ray is pointing. So ray origin dot direction. And then what do I want to do? And then add with, and then call the position of where the force should be. So where do I want to apply that force? I want to apply that force to the hit information dot point, which in the Unity reference manual says the exact point in 3D space that the raycast hit. And then I need to add with the direction your force variable, which is power for me. And that's an applied 500 power to the direction at that exact point in 3D space that the ray hit. Alright, and that's how I would do that. So now I have that method, and then end it with a semicolon. Alright, so for this one here, I would comment out the top one, and I would create this new method. Alright, so good luck with that, and I hope this tutorial has helped you guys get a bit of a better understanding of Raycast. I found it much easier, guys, when you rename this to Raycast Origin and set it to the origin you want, which for me was the mouse position of the camera script, of the camera game screen, and then Raycast Hit. Don't just name it Hit, because it's hard to understand it. It's hit information, okay? The hit information is basically your call of where you want to, of what you want to do. Do what do you want the raycast value to return? Do you want it to return the point at which the raycast hit? Do you want it to return the game object it hit, the transform that it hit? Do you want it to return everything? There's a method called raycast all for that. But basically, don't make it harder than it needs to be. I hope this video has helped. If there's any questions, guys, please post below, and I'll answer them as best as I can. I'm sorry this video went a little long, but basically, yeah, I hope this helps someone. I know you guys wanted some first-person shooter tutorials, and this is the best one I can give you. If you wanted to create, say, a prefab that instantiates where the ray hit, like for instance, say you were shooting a gun and you missed the person, but it hit the wall, and you want to instantiate a bullet prefab, like maybe there's a bullet hole or something. Let me show you how you would do that real quick. If hitInfo.rigidBody not equals null, so if it hits something, right, what you would do is you would do your instantiate method, alright, and you'll see you have your object original, you have your vector3 position, and your quaternion rotation. I've talked about instantiate in previous tutorials in the space shooter. What you need first is declare your public prefab variable. Okay, and what you would do is you would say your bullet hole, your prefab would be your, you'd put your, I guess, your bullet hole prefab. And then, let's see, what do we need? We need a vector3 position. So what do we want that position to be? We want that position to be where the raycast hit. So the exact point for me would be hitInfo.point, which gets the exact point at where the bullet hit, the raycast hit, would leave a bullet hole. And then here we have a rotation, which we don't really need to do, so you would just do, you can just do transform.rotation, and that keeps it at default. Alright, and that's that. And then in the bullet script, guys, you would have a destroy method built into it, so it would remove the bullet hole off the wall. Alright guys, that's it. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe, post, comment, or not, do whatever. But if you have any questions, please post below. Thanks.